The Dutch have a saying, too soon old and too late smart. Too soon old and too late smart. What they were trying to say was that by the time that we've acquired enough knowledge to call ourselves smart or intelligent, we're too old. There's so much to learn and such little time. Life is too short and you only live once. A very good evening to all of you, my short-lived audience. So how do we make the most of our time on this earth? How do we maximize our efficiency? How can we optimize our lives? It all boils down to one question, if you ask me. How bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? What lengths are you willing to go to ensure that you get it done? Show of hands. How many of you have set your sights on a certain goal or a certain skill that you want to acquire? And then time passes, weeks to a month, maybe 3 months. And you look back and you realize, I've made little to no progress towards achieving this goal. That's the story of my life. And I attribute this to a couple of reasons. I didn't want it bad enough. I didn't have the discipline required to make sure that I get it done. I didn't have the mental strength to help me blast through the obstacles that would get in my way. The mind is often the limiting factor of the equation. Oftentimes, when you think that you can't do it, you'll think that your body has nothing left in it, but your body does, and it's your mind that is telling you that you can't. There was a study that was done, a study involving many rugby players from a team, and these are all very physically fit men. And this was a 3-stage study, but the players didn't know about the third. They thought it was a 2-stage study. So the first stage, they were asked to get into a gym and get on a stationary bicycle and pedal as fast as they could for 5 seconds. And they all said yes, very easy, and they passed with flying colors. Now the second stage, they were asked to get back on the bicycle and pedal at a lower intensity until failure, until they absolutely could not do anymore. And one by one, they all got tired and gave up, exhausted and exasperated, and fell on the floor. And then the third stage was revealed unto them. They were asked to get back onto the bicycle and pedal their 5-second max again. And they were like, well, it's just 5 seconds. I can do 5 seconds of anything. And they did get back on the bike and they pedaled. Now, if they were at their absolute physical limit, this would have been physically impossible. They wouldn't have been able to pedal for even 1 second. But the psychology of the brain took over. It's interesting because they were not really at their utmost physical limit. But instead, they had reached the limit of suffering that they were willing to endure. Oftentimes, when we become faced with adversity, we have a choice. And the question changes from how bad do you want it to which do you want more? Do you want to persevere and get it done? Or do you want to simply end the suffering? The perception of effort comes into play here. The amount of effort that the brain perceives you as doing, not what you're actually doing. Because in stage 2, when they were starting to do at this low intensity and when they finished, they were really doing the same amount of work. But the perceived effort at the end was so much greater because they were fatigued and tired. But when they stopped, they were still as fatigued as they were, but because they had stopped moving, the perceived effort became so much lower, and they were able to get back on the bike and dig into a hidden reserve capacity, which they had hidden from themselves in the second stage. The mind is often the limiting factor of the equation. But there are reasons as to why this perception of effort kicks in. It's often good to take breaks. It's good to work smart and not hard, to not overwork ourselves. This is mainly a mechanism that is to preserve energy. And this is never more so important than it was in primitive times, when we used to run from predators, and chase down prey. But we live in simple times, my friends. The thing that is putting your life in danger the most is the fact that you went to McDonald's 3 times this week. I'm not judging, I'm guilty. Just yesterday I had a quarter pounder and a triple cheeseburger and I enjoyed every bite. But I'm joking. But this mechanism is not so crucial to our survival in today's day and age. You are not putting your life in that much danger by pushing your body that little bit further that it takes to get it done. YOLO. You only live once. If you haven't heard of this phrase, you probably haven't heard of Drake. And if you haven't heard of Drake, there's a door behind me. You have 10 seconds to leave the room. No, I'm just kidding. But when people think of YOLO, they think, oh, you only live once, man, let's do some cocaine. Or, you only live once, let's drop out of high school and start dealing drugs. But I take great inspiration from this quote. You only live once. Time is short. Before you know it, you will be old and without the energy and you will be regretting things. The mind is often the limiting factor of the equation. But your body is a machine waiting to be unleashed by the mind. You can train yourself to perform beyond what your perceived effort dictates. A man, Conor McGregor, one of my inspirations, he's a world champion UFC fighter. He was on housing benefits 3 years ago, and next week, well, this Saturday, he is set to make $25 million in 25 minutes. He says, I am not talented, I am obsessed. He believes that his strength of mind is strong enough that he can overcome bigger, better, and stronger opponents. But how can we unleash this? For one, there's something called visualization. You should visualize yourself in performing this adverse scenario. Visualize the challenges and visualize yourself succeeding. One more method is joining a community like Toastmasters. Surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals that will push you and you will push them to the upper echelons of society. So next time that you find yourself faced with adversity and you have that choice, do I want to persevere or do I want to end the suffering? You better pick the right one, because you only live once. It's a Toastmaster.